free training program organized by Promethean Consulting Limited. My name is Paul, and I'll be your host today. This program promises to be fun, engaging, educative, and you're going to, have fun throughout the whole process. I'm sure we're all excited about getting into tech. This program is going to have a practical session towards the end of the training. So if you have a laptop around and you're interested in following the practical session, you can always get the laptop ready, so that you can always follow through the practical session of the training. The training is going to have a certificate of attendance attached to it. So if you're interested in getting a certificate of attendance attached to it, please wait till the end of the training. We also have a surprise. We also have a surprise discount package for people that wait till the end of the training. Now, Promethean Consulting. Let's just give a brief bio about Promethean. Promethean Consulting Limited is a firm that focuses on providing enterprise class solutions and support to businesses. We help great companies simplify and take control of their IT needs. Our services include technical consultancy, cybersecurity as a service, data recovery and disaster protection as a service, trainings, IT support, hardware procurement, and so many other things. Our solution partners include Microsoft, Cisco, HP, Manage Engine, Acronis, Fortinet, and a couple of other partners. We work with a couple of governmental agencies, financial institutions, startups, governmental agencies like the Nigerian Petroleum Development Company, which is a subsidiary of NNPC, and also financial institutions like ICO Insurance, ARM Pensions, startups like Alezo, Tangerine, Bloomberg, Africa, and so many others. Today, the expert that's going to be taking us on this training session is Mr. Elvis Okoye. Mr. Elvis Okoye is a dedicated, self-motivated professional experienced in the field of cloud and network security. He has profound knowledge in the field of network and firewall security. He has been part of several network security projects, including but not limited to site-to-site connections between the head office and its branch offices, enabling remote users to have unrestricted but monitored access to their head office environment, and provisioning of cloud network appliances. Mr. Elvis has been able to effectively manage complex cloud security projects from the initiation phase to the closure phase, by ensuring and providing highly commendable results which have successfully met customer requirements. Mr. Elvis is highly certified. He's Cisco certified. He has a Cisco certificate. He has a Huawei certificate in networking. He also has a Sophos certificate and architect certificate, among other certifications. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Mr. Elvis. Mr. Elvis Okoye. Sorry, someone raised hand. So do you want to ask a question now? I can see someone raising their hand. Is someone intending on asking a question? Okay, maybe it's a mistake. So, Mr. Elvis, are you there, sir?
Yes, I'm here, Mr. Paul.
All right. Okay, so Mr. Elvis.
Am I audible enough?
Yes, you are, sir.
Okay. I can go ahead, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone. Like Paul has rightly said, I'm Elvis, and I'm going to be taking you today on the OPNsense training. So today I'll just be briefly speaking on what it means to, or what it takes to go into the field of network engineering. Because if you want to reach that field of network engineering, you need to know the basics of networking. But if you also want to advance in your networking skills, you have to know one or two things about a firewall. Because when you're talking about networking, you have to talk about network security. And when you're talking about network security, you have to talk about a firewall, because the firewall is like a prime agent when it comes to network security in your environment. So today I'll be talking about OPNsense. OPNsense is like a sort of firewall that we'll be speaking on, but it's just that it's an open source firewall like OPNsense is an open source firewall. So in this training today, I'll just be taking you guys on this type of firewall because of, like I said, if you want to transition into network engineering, you need to have a basics of firewall. So obviously out there are like major firewall brands like Sophos, FortiGate, Palo Altos. But those ones you have to get them, you have to buy or pay like millions to get those devices to work with or to train or to learn with. But in this course, I'll be taking you through an open source software where you can use it for your training. You can use it to do your exercises. It's like a very easy to know firewall just for starters that like we have here. So in this training, you guys, this is not an interview. So if you guys have any questions, if you guys have any, like if I'm speaking too fast or you have anything you want to say, you can just unmute and just ask. I will stop what I'm doing and get onto it. So I'm going to start the training now. So I'm going to be sharing my screen very soon. So if when you guys see my screen, please can inform me. And I hope I'm audible enough, by the way. So can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sure, we can see it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So like I said before or earlier, I'm going to be speaking on OPNsense. So this training is basically about firewalls. So I won't be going really in depth into networking, like the LAN, the WAN, the DMZ. Like I won't be going into networking. I'll also be talking about firewalls today because of, like I said, it's like the essential when talking about network security. So, but before we start, I'm going to be giving an overview of a firewall. Like what basically is a firewall? Like when they say what's a firewall, people think of a wall that is being protected, like it's round the network. It's just like a software that is just protecting the network. Which in truth, yes, that's what a firewall is. But a firewall is more than that. It's more than that concept of bringing a wall around a company or bringing a wall around a secluded or a very, very segmented environment. So in the basics thing, like when you're talking about a firewall, basically, if somebody asks you what is a firewall, what you should just say, what it should be encompassing is just a firewall is it's sort of device, network appliance, could be a software also, it could be a hardware, but it's basically a device that sits in a perimeter. So it sits in a confined space. A firewall cannot cover a wide area in a network. A firewall only can cover a local area network. So when you're talking about firewall, it's just a device, like I said, that sits between a local area network and a wide area network. A local area network in this sense I'm talking about is the maybe if you're in your office or in your building or in your house, it's just like a LAN is like a local area network that encompassing a small space, maybe an office space, maybe your home. It's just a network that you know is private to just your environment. It's private to just you alone. No other person from outside can gain access to your environment, to that environment, which is why it's called a local area network. So that is like maybe an office space, like I said. While the wide area network, that is like the internet, that is like everything that is outside of that secluded environment. So the internet is like the World Wide Web, the place where a lot of things happen. So the firewall basically sits in between those two things. It sits between your LAN and sits between your WAN, or the WAN, not your WAN, because nobody owns the internet. So it sits between your local area network and the wide area network. So basically what a firewall does is just to prevent unauthorized persons to get into your network. Because like I said, your local area network is private, it's for you. So to prevent that, I'm sure you guys have heard about attacks, hackers, cybersecurity, or the other in total. So if you don't want those things to get into your network, if you don't want those intruders to gain access to your data, I know that some of them will say, okay, I don't have anything much in my data, I don't have anything secure, but it doesn't matter. It's just need to protect something that is within your local area environment. So that's what a firewall does. It's just a set of rules, a set of policies, a set of traits, features that are put within your network, within your space, within your private area, within that concentrated area to prevent unauthorized access into your local area network. So a firewall could be seen as a router. I'm sure if some of you here are networking savvy, you guys will know what a router is and a switch. So yeah, so people say a firewall is like a router, which it is. It's like a router because it does basically what it says. It can route traffic to the internet and back. Because that's essentially what a router does. It just routes traffic from the LAN area network to the WAN and then from the WAN to the LAN. That's the basics of what the router does. What a firewall does is it does that, but also integrated with it. Also, what companies pay millions and millions of dollars for in licensing for is the security that comes with the firewall. So I hope it's understood what a firewall does. It's basically it's a very important tool, like a very important tool. Like if you want to own a business and you want to secure your data that's within that business, you need to have a firewall in place in your environment to protect that data within your environment. So I hope that's understood. So I'll be moving forward. So I'll talk about some of the benefits of a firewall. I'll be going in depth into some of these benefits. I'll just be briefly speaking about it. So the first benefit is monitors network traffic. So what I mean by that is, like I said before, it's just a set of rules. A firewall is just basically just a set of rules. So it's just okay. Allowed setting this guy, maybe allow if you have maybe a brother in your house or a sister in your house, and then you want to allow the person to browse or to leave the local area network to the wide area network, you can create the rules to that block or allow that your brother, your sister, using the IP address of the device to leave the network or to leave your local area network. Or it could be the reverse. Maybe if you have, like I said, the wide area network is like the internet, so basically the internet. So maybe if you don't want countries like Japan, countries like China from getting access to your network or even seeing your network, what you can do is you can state on the firewall rules to say, okay, this country, because it's possible in some major firewalls now, this country, because some countries they have certain IP addresses that are bound to those countries. So you can say, okay, IP addresses from this country should not be able to access my network. So you can block that using the firewall. So firewall is basically just monitor network traffic. Okay, are this traffic that's leaving my network meant to leave? Is this traffic coming to my network meant to come in? So basically that's just what the benefit of a basic firewall does. The next one, which is the main reason why companies spend a lot of dollars, a lot of millions on firewall, is to stop virus attacks. So in companies nowadays, data is very important. So if you have sensitive data, if you have sensitive information, maybe like credit card information for customers, you have health data from your patient, the hospital, if you need compliance, like if you have data, if you have things in your company that you know that, okay, this is personally identifiable information, okay, you just don't want anybody outside the internet to have access to this information, you can then use the firewall to prevent such attacks. Because what the firewall does is to prevent cyber criminals, that is criminals from the internet, people that are looking to extort companies, people that are looking to gain access to companies and steal data and run some data out of those companies. So this firewall, it helps prevent those cyber criminals from getting access to a network. But then you have to do your own part because you have to configure that firewall right to be able to stop those attacks. If you just drop a firewall as you buy it and just drop it in front of this thing, yes, to do the basic filtering, but then for the most advanced filtering, like the web filtering, the application filtering, every of the features that a firewall has, you can't do that if you just drop it there. You have to configure it. So you have to configure it to be right. You have to put it to your own preference. So that is one of the main benefits of a firewall, is just to prevent cyber criminals from getting access to your environment. Then the next one is prevent hacking. So I think this goes hand in hand with the virus attack, because hacking is just basically when a cyber criminal gets access, or he finds a vulnerability, or he finds a pathway or a vector point into your network. So what he does is just he finds a way to hack into your network. He finds a way to gain access into your network and then steal sensitive information. So what a firewall does is that it can prevent that from taking place in your environment. Then stop spyware. So all this basically is just cybersecurity inclined, because spyware is like software that spies on you, software that takes track of your activities that you do in your network, takes track of what you use your network for. So spyware are like keyloggers. So if cyber criminal gain access to maybe your endpoint device, like your laptop or your phone, and then or most likely your laptop, and installs a keylogging virus in your environment, in your endpoint. What that allows that cyber criminal get is that you can maybe get out the password as you're typing it down. You can get other information from your laptop if you type it out. So what it does, or what the firewall does, is just prevent it. And like I said, this is talking in line with cyber criminals, because that's like the main aim of the firewall, to prevent cyber criminals from getting access to your environment. So stopping spyware, stopping adware, any malicious software basically needs there's the firewall. That's the firewall's job to stop and prevent it. Then the last one is it promotes privacy. So yeah, if you have something that you want to keep, you have something that you want to protect, you have something that, okay, you don't want just anybody getting access to it, this firewall gives you that sense of privacy, gives you that sense of, okay, whatever is within my, like that's, I'm talking about the firewall now. You're saying, okay, whatever is within my control, whatever is within where I possess, the perimeter that I cover is going to be private to just you. So it gives you that sense of belonging, that sense of whatever is here belongs to you, and no other person that is not authorized to gain access to that data will gain access to it. So that is the last benefits here. There are other benefits, of course, but just for now, these are just the main benefits of gaining a firewall. If you guys have any question, like I said, you guys can just stop me and ask. So I'll help you guys understand that part. So the types of firewall, I'll be briefing on the basically types of firewall. So like I said, a firewall is just basically a set of rules that either stops or denies traffic. So one major type of firewall is the packet filtering. So what the packet filtering does is just basically, okay, someone has a question. Yeah, you can ask if you have a question.
Yeah, seems like. So, do you have a question? The person's name,
I just want to ask that is firewall and VPN the same? Is it the same with VPN?
Okay. A VPN is not a firewall, but a firewall has the feature of a VPN. So you can't just have a VPN sitting like that. Like a VPN is like a virtual private network that's created by a device. So when people say, what's a VPN? I won't talk about VPN here because that's a little bit advanced. But if people say, okay, okay, I'll talk about it actually. But a VPN is just like a private data that's created between a site and another site. So a firewall has the feature of a VPN. A firewall is basically can do a lot of things, but one of the features that come with that firewall is that it can create a virtual private network between a site and another site. So a VPN is not a firewall in the sense that you can't have these features of web filtering based on the firewall. The VPN is just like a term. It's like a term. It's not really a device. That you can't say, okay, this is a VPN device, because sometimes a VPN device is most likely a firewall. So I think what I'm trying to say is that a firewall has the feature of a VPN, but a VPN is not a firewall. I hope that's understood. Is that understood, or should I go over it again? Okay. Okay, can you still hear me, Paul? Am I still audible?
yes, you're audible. Sir.
Okay. I hope that answers your question, by the way.
Yes,
I'll
sir.
also speak
Yes, sir.
on.
Thank you.
Okay, it does. Okay. I also speak on firewall here, on VPN here. So I think when I get there, I'll elaborate. But just know it's one of the features of a firewall. So the next, okay, so I was going to talk about the types of firewall. So the first type is the packet filtering firewall. So what it does is, like I said, a firewall is just basically a set of rules and policies and utilities. So what packet filtering is just a basic form of rule. So it's just saying, okay, based on your IP address, because in the OSI suite, there's something in networking that's called the OSI model. So it has like 7 steps or 7 blocks of things that data has to pass through. So that OSI model, it has the first step is like the application stage, the second stage is presentation, third is the session, fourth is the transport, fifth is network, sixth is the data, and last is the physical layer. So the layer that this packet filtering works in is the network layer. So what that layer does is just to filter based on IP address. So we all know, I'm sure if we are all tech savvy here, like I said earlier, we all know that every device, if it wants to connect to the internet, or even if it also wants to connect to a local area network, it needs to have an IP address. Every device, if you check right now, every device right now has what is called a MAC address. And a MAC address is that physical address that is bound into your device. Like that device, that MAC address does not change. It is just for that device. Yes, cyber criminals has found a way to spoof MAC addresses, but just in a normal world, in a sane world, a MAC address is only meant to be for your device, only meant to be for that particular device that you own. But if physical or an IP address, that's an IP address that comes with your device that when you connect to a network, that IP address can change. So it's not always constant. That one changes. So that IP address layer, that address that you have based on your IP address, that packet filtering can filter based on the IP address. So like the example I gave in, if you have you're in your house right now and then you have a firewall in your building in your house, and also you have like a brother and a sister also in your house, and then you want to, like maybe your brother has been using his device throughout the whole day and you want to stop him from using the device, you want to block access from that device to reach the internet. What you can do is, if you already know his IP address, like if you already know the IP address of that device that your brother is using, you can get it from the firewall. But let's say you get the IP address of the device that your brother is using. What you can do is, on the firewall, you can block that IP address from getting access to the internet. And once that is done, your brother will not have access to the internet, but just your brother. Your sister that is also using the internet, but is wise about how you use it on the internet, will still be able to pass through the internet, will still be able to browse and go and maybe use it for assignments or other things. But the brother, which has been blocked by you, that guy, your brother will not be able to use that internet again because of you blocked the IP address that's assigned to the user. So that is one of the ways of, well, that's one of the types of packet filtering. That's just like the basic type of packet filtering. It blocks based on IP address. So it can be the other way around. I give the example of the LAN to the WAN, that is from your house, your local network to the internet. You can also block from the internet to your house. So if you want to block, let's say, for example, facebook.com from having access back into your network. So yes, Facebook and Google, they have several IP addresses. Like their IP addresses, it changes based on, okay, if one is down, the other one you can use it. But let's just say they only have one IP address. So if you block the IP address from getting access to your network, nobody from the LAN area network, nobody from like the LAN area as your house now would have access to go.com because of you have blocked it from the firewall. So that is, I'm just trying to say you can block it both ways. You can block it internally, so you can block it from going out, or you can block it from coming in. So that is packet filtering, blocking based on IP address. The next one is proxy service. So what's proxy service? So what proxy service is blocking it based on application. Like I said, the first layer in the OSM model is application. So what this means is that, okay, no applications like Facebook is an application, Instagram is an application, Salesforce is an application, WhatsApp is an application, all these ones application. So instead of saying, okay, block based on IP address, now you're blocking it, you're going in depth, you're going to the core of it and saying, okay, I want you to block this thing based on you're talking based on the application the person is using. So let's say, for example, again, I'll use the example of a brother. Let's say you have your brother that is using your device all the time, but you know that, okay, he might still need this internet for maybe doing his assignments. You might need it to do maybe important things after you stop him from using it to browse on TikTok or on WhatsApp. So what you can do is, okay, you can block him from using a certain application within your network. So you can go into the firewall and say, okay, block WhatsApp or block Instagram or block Twitter. So what this does is that any device that wants to get out to the internet and who wants to go through and wants to visit maybe a Twitter page or visit the Instagram page is going to block that user from getting access to it. Someone trying to talk? Oh, okay. So is going to block access to that application. So what that means is that it means basically that anybody, so not just not your brother, your sister too, there's also trying to use internet. Let's say she also wants to use Twitter, but she's, like I said, using it wisely. She also won't be able to reach the internet. She also won't be able to reach the internet and get to Twitter and get to Instagram. She can still go to Google, but she'll be able to go to those applications that you blocked because of what your brother was in it for. But you can also block it based on, that's the next stage now, which is going to be state-free inspection. You can block using IP address and application. So the proxy service was a block application. So you put an application to block, and nobody from your LAN area network, both your brother, both your sister, won't be able to reach Facebook or Twitter or Google or Instagram. So they won't be able to reach it. But that is one segment of proxy service. So what the state-free inspection is like combines both words. So it combines both the packet filtering and the proxy service. So you can block based on both IP address and application. So now, if your sister, okay, see, I have a question. Can I tell?
The input name, I can see your hand is raised. I don't know.
Yeah, hello?
So,
Hello?
yes, you can hear.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if with the firewall, so you can do bandwidth allocation.
Okay, so yes, you can do traffic shaping or bandwidth management. So if you want to, okay, I think you're asking it based on your brother. So if the example I'm giving now, like if that brother is making use of the internet too much and then is stopping other people from making use of the internet, you can limit his bandwidth usage. You can limit, okay, only give this guy access to maybe 1 MB per second or 2 MB per second so that he doesn't disturb what other people are using the internet for. So yes, most firewalls does bandwidth management, or what is mainly known as traffic shaping. So you just limit a user, limit a specific, can be a device, can be a user from utilizing all the bandwidth that's given to the firewall. I hope that's
Is
a
it, is it, all, is it all the firewalls or specific firewalls? Because I realize that it is not all the firewalls that have that feature. Because
well the ones
on some
yeah
routers have that feature. Some routers have some of them do not have. So these are only specific routers that have that feature. Or
yes. So like you said, it's depending on the vendor or the OEM. But most firewalls should have that feature of traffic shaping. Just maybe it doesn't have a different name that is used to define it. Like I know the Macotic router calls it quality of service QoS. So this is to limit bandwidth. But I know most firewalls. Yes, I can't say for every firewall vendor and every router vendor because I've not worked with all of them. But I know most of them have a feature that you can use to limit the bandwidth of a user. I would answer your question.
yeah,
Okay.
Please, I have a question.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so is there anything like stateless firewall?
Yes. Thank you for being observant. Yes, something called stateless firewall. But stateless firewall is the same thing as packet filtering. I don't want to add it there to cause any confusion, but packet filtering is the same thing as stateless firewall. And I've explained what packet filtering does. It's blocks based on IP address. So stateful firewall is like the next big boy, block based on packet filtering and proxy service. How do I answer your question?
Okay, so stateful combines proxy and packet filtering.
Yes, it does.
All right, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Any other question you can ask now before I continue? Okay, I'll continue then. So yes, like I just said, stateful inspection, it covers both the packet filtering and the proxy service. So I was giving an example to maybe solidify what I was trying to say. Maybe you're trying to block your brother from going to Twitter, but then you inadvertently blocked your sister too from using that same application when you're using the proxy service. But what if you just want to just block only your brother? So you want your sister to still use Twitter, but you want your brother to not use Twitter, but you can still use you can still browse the internet. So that is now where stateful firewall, stateful inspection comes in place. So it's on blocks based on IP address and on application. So you can get your brother's IP address, input it in the firewall, and then choose the application that you want to be blocked from their IP address. You are saying, okay, I don't want this IP address to get to this application. So you can do that configuration on the firewall itself. So this allows you to segment what you are blocking, segment who you are blocking, and what device you are blocking. So this stateful inspection is like one of the next big stage when it comes to firewalling. So the next and the major, like if you're talking about advanced firewall, you're talking about major firewalls, then you're going to be talking about next generation firewalls. The next generation firewalls are firewalls that does everything, like it does almost everything. This packet filter you can see is like a router. Proxy service is somewhat like a firewall, but like a basic firewall, like all those cheap firewalls. Same thing with stateful inspection. You can ask, okay, you're getting there. But when you talk about next generation firewalls, these guys block based on everything. Like you can block based on MAC address, you can block based on the tiniest detail of that device. You can block based on it. So next generation firewall are firewalls that are what major companies use nowadays when they're trying to use the internet. When they're trying to maybe get into the world and secure their data. Next generation firewalls are one of the main selling points for businesses now because of they come with integrated benefits, they come with scope, they have things that create this sense of protection for the business. Yes, the name is quite fancy, next generation firewall, but the OEM, the vendors know the benefit of having this next generation firewall because it comes with AI, it comes baked with that AI capability that allows your business to automate processes, to automate services. So this allows you to, understand better, to allows your business to understand their environment better, understand their cybersecurity posture. Like with that next generation firewall, you don't have to even do much. Like cybersecurity analysts don't have to do much again because of some of those activities are automated. Just automate it and then they get their job done for them without any stress. So next generation firewalls are the next big firewalls right now. And some of the big players in this game is like the Sophos, the Palo Alto, the FortiGate. Most of these guys, Barracuda, they are the ones that deliver next generation firewall for companies right now. And those are the ones that are really pulling the game when it comes to securing businesses and securing their network and their cybersecurity posture. So these are the major types of firewalls that we have when it comes to networking. If you have any question, you can ask now while I move to the next slide. Okay, so moving on, these are some of the uses of firewall. So like I explained before, like I was explaining before, the first major use here is the VPN, that's a virtual private network. So this is a feature that comes with the firewall, is a benefit of getting a firewall. So what a virtual private network is just to create a sense of private connection between site A and site B. So if you have a head office, but then you have a branch office also, but that branch office is in a different location. Let's say your head office is in Ireland and your branch office is in the mainland. So it is miles apart. So you cannot run cables from the mainland to the island. That is impossible to just create that perfect network. In the case that maybe you have the branch office is dependent on a server that is residing within the head office. So if you have that kind of setup, what you need is a virtual private network. So if you want the branch office people, like the users in the branch office, to be able to reach the head office, so what you need to do in that case is you need to create a sort of a virtual private network, a sort of a private network that only the head office and the branch office has access to. So it's going through the internet. Yes, it has to pass through the internet, but then it's the data is like a tunnel. Just think of it as a tunnel that is running, a virtual invisible tunnel that is running from your head office to your branch office. So yes, obviously you won't obviously see a tunnel going from one office, but just think of it as encryption policies put in place, hashing algorithms put in place, security policies put in place, just make sure that the data that's leaving your head office all the way to your branch office is not going or is not affected by the internet, it's not affected by any third party. So no third party will have access to that data. It's just going to be accessible from the branch office and to the head office. So this is one of the major advantage of using a firewall. It creates that virtual private network. Yes, a router can create a virtual private network, but a firewall does the security that they put in place to give it that major boost, major benefits of creating that virtual network, creating that virtual connection between your head office and your branch office. So the next use of a firewall is for web filtering. So in this case of web filtering, I'm trying to talk about website filtering. So if you're in a company, you work for a company, and then you have users that are utilizing that during work hours, they are browsing on Instagram, browsing on Twitter, and then your management notice that is hampering on user staff workload, like they are not really doing their work well, is bugging them down, like people are not doing their work properly. So, and you as a network engineer, you as that IT guy, they call you and they say, okay, they want you to block access to this website during these work hours to prevent users from getting access to those websites while they are working. So the firewall, if you have a firewall in place in your environment, you can use that firewall to set up that web filtering policy that will block based on the website that they are trying to reach. So if they are trying to reach maybe Instagram, Twitter, right on the network, you don't have to go to their systems. You don't have to go to the test one by one. Just on the firewall, just put in place that whenever my LAN network is trying to reach the one network, block this application from getting access to block this LAN network from getting access to such and such websites. So a firewall can also do that. So moving on, intrusion prevention. So what that is basically the main reason why you need the firewall. So I've said it before. I've spoken about cybersecurity criminals. I've spoken about protecting your business. So what intrusion prevention is all about is basically just, sorry about the mistake, it's intrusion, not instruction. Intrusion prevention. So what intrusion prevention is basically blocking access to from the internet to your network. So it's preventing hackers, preventing cyber criminals from getting access to your network and infiltrating your network. So what attackers do is that they try and see vulnerabilities in your network. They try and gain vulnerabilities, maybe open ports in your network, and they try and exploit that port. They try to gain access to those ports, and then using that port, gain access to your entire network. And then when they gain access to your network, they now try and use what is called lateral movements to move around your network and escalate their privilege. So once you have a firewall in place, when you have a firewall in your network, what that firewall does is it prevents those attackers from doing it. Mind my word, I say it prevents. It doesn't stop. It's not as if you have a firewall in your environment, no attacker can gain access to your network. Like there's no way an attacker can access your network. That's what I'm trying to say. It just prevents. So it does the job of giving you that peace of mind that, okay, I'm here. I'm going to try my best to stop it. But then you know that the world is evolving, that even the big boys like Google, like Amazon, they're getting hacked. And we all know that those guys have major security in place. So even if they have that firewall, you need to have other security tools in your environment to prevent those attacks. But a firewall does the basic job. It does the basic job of just blocking that attack at that point from getting access to your network. So the next, by the way, if you have any question with what I just said, you can ask. If I'm confusing anyone, you can just ask. I'll go back to it and explain what it does. So the fourth use of a firewall is SD-WAN. So SD-WAN is called software defined WAN. So this is just like a new concept in place. I'll not really talk much. I won't talk much on it, but it's like a new concept where if you have two WAN connections.
You said the SD one is called what? The SD one is called what?
Okay, it's called software defined WAN. So software defined wide area network. SD stands for software defined.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like a new concept. So basically, how you gain access to the network, because right now there are ISPs that we use, that we all know that we use here in Nigeria. So ISPs like MTN, like Airtel, like Glo, like Swift, like SpectraNet, like FiberOne. All those guys are major ISPs. They are big boys, and they're the ones that actually give us access to the internet. Because like I said, the internet is a connection of routers. Like that's what internet is. Internet is just an interconnection of routers, interconnection of network devices. So not one person owns the internet. You can't say, okay, the internet is owned by one organization. No, the internet is not owned by anybody. It's just, but there are government bodies that regulate what is done on the internet, but nobody, no entity owns the internet. So what the ISP does is just to create like a gateway for you to gain access to the network. So on your phones now, how you are using your laptop or your device to get into this webinar, you're making use of a Wi-Fi or a LAN connection that you own. So what that connection does gives you access to the internet and then gives you access to view what you are seeing right now on your screen. But what SD-WAN does is, just imagine, let me give an example right now. Imagine you're using a phone and then you're using an ISP. Maybe let's say you're using MTN and Airtel in your phone. That's the two. Let's say your phone has two SIM cards. I know it's not popular now, but let's say your phones has two SIM cards, Airtel and Glo, or Airtel and MTN. But in your phone, you can only select one network, one ISP, one provider to be the one that's providing you internet. So you can only select one at a time if you have a dual SIM enabled phone. So the concept of SD-WAN is you can't do that on phones now. I'm just trying to give an example on firewalls, what firewall does. But on phone, let's say they create a brand new phone. Let's say Apple creates a brand new phone that has two SIM cards, and they say you can input two SIMs in it. Let's say MTN and Airtel, and then you can combine both networks to act as one when you want to browse the internet. So let's say MTN is giving you 10 MB per second. That is fast, right? Everybody is okay with 10 MB per second for your personal use. And you have Airtel also on your phone. It's like a SIM card there, and Airtel is giving you 5 MB or 6 Mbps per second. So what SD-WAN does on the firewall is that it combines those two networks together to make you go through. It's like a virtual one aggregation. So you aggregate both networks together and allows you to use the power of both service, so you can be able to browse the internet. So yes, I give the example of 10 MB for MTN and 6 MB for Airtel. So you might think that, okay, if you combine it, you will now have a combined total of 16 Mbps to browse internet. That's not really the case. It's just load balancing the traffic between both networks. So it's like saying, okay, instead of Facebook, maybe you're browsing on Facebook right now, and then you are going through MTN, because internet is, when you're internet, you're doing it based on packets. I'm not good, but you're doing it based on packets. So you say, okay, this packet from Instagram is going through MTN. So what the other one does is, okay, instead of taking all the packets through MTN, let's say you're also going on YouTube, maybe you're using a split screen, you're also using YouTube and you're using Instagram at the same time. I know that's weird, but just stay with me. I'll just give you an example. So you're using Instagram and you're using YouTube. So they can say, okay, instead of Instagram and YouTube, they're using at the same time to go through MTN. Let Instagram go through MTN and let YouTube go through Airtel. So that's like the basic concept of what SD-WAN is. It's just load balancing traffic between the two one network, so that it doesn't just exhaust the pipe of that one ISP that you're using. You can segment and load balance traffic between both networks. I hope it's understood, like the concept of software-defined WAN. I hope this is understood. That way it's called software-defined, which means you get to define what you want to use that one network for. So if you have any question, if you have comments about SD-WAN, I can go back and explain it, but that is basically the concept of what SD-WAN is basically combining two ISPs, two network providers together to allow you have a load balance faster network to be going out of your network, so that it can give you that smooth experience when you're browsing internet and you won't have any lag or buffering while you're browsing. So that is the essence of SD-WAN. So the next use is sandboxing. So what is sandboxing essentially? Sandboxing is basically just if you have an environment in your LAN network and you want it to be separated from your environment. You don't want it to be part of your LAN environment, but you want it to be part of your LAN environment. It's kind of like a controlled environment within your LAN network that you can use to do anything. So maybe if you want to run a sort of test, you want to run a sort of maybe a test of a virus to see if this virus is actually contagious. But obviously, you don't run that test within your LAN area network. You can use a firewall to create a sort of a sandbox environment that mimics your network, and then you can run that virus and to see how the virus runs, or to see how you can analyze the virus, whether it's actually going to be effective, it's going to be used or malicious, or it's going to be safe. So this is what big companies use when they're trying to analyze your network or analyze a virus. They use a concept of sandboxing to analyze that virus. So they just put that virus in a controlled environment, let it run, let it clear out its course, and you now see, okay, is this virus really malicious, or is it just a false positive, and then you allow it pass through the network. So think of sandboxing as a controlled environment. Think of sandboxing as a way to run activities, run stuff on your network that you don't want it to impact on the activities of what you are using your actual LAN area network for. So that is the last use. The other uses, like I said, I'm not trying to just make it short, but these are some of the uses of a firewall. So I'll be going to the next one, which is the types of firewall environments. Very brief. I'll just be briefing on what these three types of firewalls are. The first one is DMZ, like we say, demilitarized zone. So within your LAN area network, this demilitarized zone is like a zone where you want to give access to the internet. Like let's say you are hosting, you have a company and you want to host, you have servers within that company, and you want to host websites in that company, and you want that websites to be accessible from the internet. So what you do is you keep that servers in a demilitarized zone, keep it in another zone that is separate from your LAN zone. So when the servers is in that demilitarized zone, people from the internet can gain access to the server. You can use the website that is hosted on the server. But those users do not have access to your LAN network because they're on different zones. The internet zone, and external zone, they are different zones within your LAN environment. So the demilitarized zone is like a separated zone that is used to just host internal users and external users. So users from the internet can gain access to that web page, use the web page, get resources from the web page, and then leave. But those external users will not have access to your internal application. This is like one of the if you have a company, this is what they must do in the company. Just give users access to that in the internet, access to that server, because obviously they need access to the service on that server, and then it will don't allow that user to gain that user internet to gain access to the internal network that your company staffs are making use of. The next one is intranet. So intranet, like I said, there are two zones, the DMZ zone and the LAN zone. The LAN zone is the intranet. You can call the LAN the intranet because of it's where your users work, is where your users gain access to. So because of this, it's like a zone separation. You have the DMZ zone where you're hosting servers and you're giving access to people in the internet, and then you have the LAN or intranet zone where your private company users are making use of to reach the internet. Why the extranet is like the internet. The extranet is like the internet. So the internet is the one zone. It's a zone that has every thing that's like who.com, instagram.com, facebook.com. So like I said before, nobody owns the extranet. So extranet is not a private network. The intranet is a private network. The DMZ is a sort of private network that you are allowing outside users to gain access to. But an extranet is just the World Wide Web, is just the internet that's a zone. Just you can call it a zone that you don't have control over, but you can use it to gain control to your intranet zone. So I hope it is understood. I'm about to move to the next slide. I hope I've made clear what these three zones are, like the three types of firewall environments. Okay, no question. I'll be moving on to the actual practical session. So I'm going to start the installation of the OPNsense. So like I said before, the OPNsense is a type of firewall that we are going to learn today, because like I said, if you want to go into the network engineering, you want to go to the network engineering pathway, you need to understand what a firewall is. So like I said before, firewalls are very expensive, especially the next generation firewalls. They are really expensive and you pay millions to get those ones to practice with. So I'm giving you an open source firewall here, which you can gain access to, and you can train yourself, use it to see how the internet works, to see how firewall works, to see how network engineers run their network within their environment. And because of this OPNsense, it gives like an open gateway for network engineers, aspiring network engineers, to gain access into the field of network engineering. So in this module, because this is the first module here, I'm going to be speaking on how we can set up the OPNsense on a virtual machine using Hyper-V. I'm going to also show you how to update the firewall after complete setup. We also look at how we can install plugins directly inside the firewall, and we'll now look at then configuring access to the firewall via SSH and command line interface. So, like I said, this is going to be very brief because there are a lot of, this is just module 1. We have to like module 10, but because of this, just like a virtual training, I'm not going to go deep into all the modules. So just especially looking at module 1, how to install the OPNsense, how to just do a basic setup of the OPNsense, and then we're going to install plugins and then do access using SSH. So I'll be explaining all of that during this module. So minimum requirements. So if you were around for the session we had yesterday, that's the virtual training we had yesterday, you would have heard one of the speakers, that is one of the tutors, speak out on servers and speak on Hyper-V. So if you want to host, because this software, this OPNsense software is a software, it's sort of like a software firewall. So you can install this OPNsense firewall on a virtual environment and you can use it for your testing purposes. But yeah, most firewalls are, you can see them, you can see it's like a box, it's like a router. You can see it, and you can now plug in cables to it and then do your networking stuff in it. But for this course, I'll just be just showing you like how you can have a somewhat like a home setup, something like a setup that you just have at home. You can use it for your testing purposes. So if you want to install OPNsense on your laptop, you can certainly do it. You just need to have a minimum requirement for hosting that OPNsense software. So you need to have at least 1 gigahertz of 1 gigahertz core of CPU. So your CPU should at least be running at least 5 gigahertz so that you can allocate 1 gigahertz to the virtual machine that you'll be running the OPNsense on. Then you also need 2 gigs of RAM. So if your laptop uses like 8 gigs of RAM, you can now allocate 2 gig to the virtual appliance that is going to be hosting the OPNsense. You can attach 2 gigs of RAM to it. And also for your hard drive, if you have maybe 1 TB hard drive of your laptop, you need to give that OPNsense virtual machine at least 13 gigabits of hard drives that you can use it for hosting, for storing some of the data. And then most importantly, if you want to actually use it for testing within your environment, you need to have 2 network cards. Like I said before, there are 2 zones. For basic stuff, there are 2 zones: the internet zone and the extranet zone. The intranet zone and the extranet zone. So the intranet zone is the LAN zone, while the extranet zone is the WAN zone. So if you want to use it for actual testing purposes, you need to have at least 2 network adapters on your laptop. We all know that laptops sometimes they don't come with one network adapter, like one physical network adapter, and that's the LAN cable that you plug to your system. Most of them now, they don't come with any adapter at all. But yeah, you can buy dongles and you can attach those dongles to your laptop, which can serve as network adapters and can use it for this testing. But for now, if you want to use or you want to host this OPNsense in your environment, you will need to have at least 2 network cards in your environment. And then the last requirement you will need is a display card. So a display card is basically just to see the environment. You need to have a laptop that has a console. You need to have a laptop that you can see. So if you're using like a Linux environment that only has a command line interface, you will not be able to run this OPNsense software because it uses a graphical user interface and not a command line interface. So when you have this sort of setup like on your laptop, maybe your Windows 10 laptop, then yeah, you can make use of this display card that is inbuilt on your laptop to view the OPNsense and graphical user interface, which we're going to set up in a bit. So I'll be moving on. By the way, if you have any question, you can ask me. I'm going to be available to answer those questions. Because right now I'm going to the demo session. I'm going to be sharing my screen or sharing another screen. I'm going to be showing you what.
Sir, please, I did love to ask. The network card, is it like the normal network we use or a different kind of network?
Okay. Are you using your system with you there? Is your system
Yeah, I'm using my system.
So if you check the size of your system, are you seeing any network adapter that you plug in LAN cables to? Like any ones that if you have been in a company that they make use of their LAN environment where they plug in RJ45 cables to your laptop so you can gain access if you don't use your Wi-Fi that is inbuilt in your system.
Okay.
Yeah, so that port you are seeing that's physical on your system, that is the network card I'm talking about. Then that network card is like a physical card that you have to plug physical cables to. So instead of using the Wi-Fi that most laptops nowadays use, you need to use that physical port that you plug in LAN cables to make use of this virtualized environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. Any other question before I continue? Because like I said, I'll be going into the demo session. And for that demo session, I'm going to be going into a different environment to show you how I'm going to install the OPNsense, and I'm going to go right into
So if it has one network card, it can't work, right?
No.
I just have one on my system.
No, it can't work. So if it can't work that way, you have to now, like I said before, you have to get a dongle. That dongle will not be the one that you can attach. You can have 2 network cards in that case. So if you buy a dongle or a USB dongle, USB to Ethernet adapter, you can plug it to your system and then you can gain the second network card. So if you have one, you can get a USB to Ethernet adapter that you can plug to your system using the USB port that will act as a second network card. I hope that's understood.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other question? I'm available to answer now. Okay, so no other question. So I'll be moving to the demo. This is the demo site here. So like I said, for this demo site, I'm going to be using a different interface. I'm going to be logging into a virtualized environment that is within my network, and I'm going to be showing you how I'm going to be configuring the OPNsense from scratch. Like I'm going to be showing you how to download this. I'm going to show you how to configure the switches, create and spin up a VM. I will not go into that creation of VM because it was done in the previous class that they had yesterday, and it's a different talk. But also be showing you how you can use the OPNsense to create and spin up the VM, mount the ISO file, begin the installation process, then mount the installation file, configure the industrial interface, and then access the web console. So, at this point, I would be going into the virtual environment. By the way, I'm having issues with the connection. So some of the time the connection with the virtual environment might disconnect, but just give it time. It's going to come back up and I'm going to have access to the virtual environment. So just give me some minutes while I connect to the virtual environment and I will share the screen of the virtual environment. By the way, if you have any question, you can ask while I set up the virtual environment. Any question about the firewalls, any question about the VPN? If you have now, just let's talk while I'm setting up the virtual environment.
Okay.
Talk about, okay.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned something earlier about IP address.
Okay.
During the firewall, I think one of the slides, when you're saying how to get the IP address to block out someone, and so like, okay, I can get my own IP address, but how do I get someone's IP address? Like someone's phone IP address to block the person out.
Okay, so
okay.
I hope it's for good use, and you're not actually trying to hack the person.
No.
Yeah, I understand.
For good use, sir.
Okay. So there are different ways, like I was saying during the presentation, to get the user's IP address. So if you are the admin and you have access to the firewall, you can if you set up DCP on the firewall, like the DCP is like a concept where you give out IP addresses using a DCP server that is hosted on the firewall. So if you set up that DCP on the firewall to give out IP addresses on the firewall itself, you can go to DCP and see all the IP address that's been listed out. And since it's going to be like in your local area network, right, where just your brother or your sister using the network, you know that you only see like maybe 4 IP addresses. And then the firewall, especially next generation firewalls, they are very smart in the sense that they can now even get the model of the device that is that IP address was attached to. So if you get that model, you can just go to your brother's phone and just see, okay, is this a Huawei? Is this an Apple? Is this a Samsung? Then on the firewall, you just go to DSP lists and you see what IP address has been assigned to those to that device. Then you can now block the IP address on the device. So that if you are going to the firewall route, but if not, you can go to the person's phone. But just this one, you have to physically gain access to the person's phone or to the person's laptop. So you have to gain access to the person's phone. There, you now have to go to the network interface, the network configuration of that phone. Then via the network configuration of that phone, you can now gain access to the person's IP address. I can't show it to you now, but if you are using your phone, you can just go to the Wi-Fi. You go to where you see Wi-Fi. That's if you're using Wi-Fi. Mostly it's because if you're using Wi-Fi, they can get the IP address. Then you will now have to now click on advanced settings. When you click on advanced settings, you will see MAC address and you see IP address. That MAC address, like I said before, is the MAC address of the address of the phone, like the bond address that it doesn't change. It is always going to be that phone's MAC address. But the IP address is going to be changing. So, but in that point where you check it, it's going to have that IP address, and you can use that IP address to block that user from having access to the internet. I hope that's understood.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so any other question? Okay, so I'm connecting now to the virtual environment. So please tell me when you see the virtual environment screen. And if you have any questions, by the way, you can ask now while I'm connecting to the virtual environment. Apologies. Okay, let me just minimize and share my screen from here. Okay, apologies. Like I said, the virtual interface might be disconnecting sometimes, so just pardon me and give me some time while I get it working. So if you have any question, like I said, you can just ask. For now, I'm going to be here to answer those questions. But in the slide, the first thing I'm going to be doing is downloading the ISO image. So what the ISO image is basically is just an image file or an ISO file that you can put on the virtual interface. So every virtual appliance, if you're using Windows, if you want to host a virtual appliance like Windows, there's an ISO file that comes with it. So what I'm going to download now on the OPNsense website is going to be the ISO image, which I'm going to load on the the virtual machine, which I'm going to create. So right now I'm trying to connect to the virtual interface. And when I do so, just tell me when you see the screen. Okay, are you seeing my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the virtual interface screen here. So just before you disconnect again, I'm going to show you how to download the OPNsense. You just go to YouTube, just go to the browser and you type OPNsense. Once you type the OPNsense, to take it to the OPNsense page here. You click on the OPNsense page to take you to the page where you download the OPNsense from initially. Then from here, you'll now choose some of the system settings. There's only one system signature. So there are in your system, you can have x86 and x64. But in this case, we are going to be using x64. So you select x64 in this case. Then for the VGA type, you have to select. There are 4 types of image type here. Like I said, we're going to be using the DVD type. So for the DVD type, okay, let me just go straight to my laptop. Apologies. Let me just go straight to my laptop. Show it to you. Like I said, you just have to just type OPNsense. Oh, because I see my screen. Just type OPNsense even on Google or on any browser, and then you gain access to this page. So this is the OPNsense download page. You open it, like I said before, to take it to the page where you will see the download page. So you can choose different options in this point. You can either choose to download using the AMD 64, which is the one that you have to choose from, or you can use the VGA. Like I said, it allows you to make use of different image type. You can make use of nano, you can make use of DVD, VGA, and serial. I won't really go in depth into what all these 4 cases are, but the one that we want to be using is the DVD. So DVD is like a bootable ISO file. So what a bootable ISO file is a file that you use to load or to burn a software or an operating system into a virtual machine. So if that's what we're going to be using in this class, so you click on this DVD here and you click on list web, and using this list web, you now download the application. So I'm not going to really download it now because I've done it already. This web is like a mirror site. There are different servers where this application is hosted. So what this mirror location is asking is, okay, where in the world do you want to get this application from? You want to get it from Brazil, from China, from Colombia, from Denmark servers. So all these servers are hosted by OPNsense, and they're just trying to say, okay, if you live in these countries that are closer to you, you can have faster downloads and can download the application, the software faster. So once you have chosen this, we just choose list web now for the Netherlands. When we choose that, we click on download and then it download the software. So like I said, I'm not going to download the software now because I've done it already. But when you download it, it's going to come up as a zip file, which I'll show you in a minute. When you get that zip file, we're not going to use that zip file, unzip it, and we're going to use the ISO image on that zip file to access the OPNsense. So at this point, does anybody have any question before I continue? Any question, or is anybody following? Like if you have a system, you can follow along if you have a system. I want to just know if everybody is still following. Any questions from anybody?
Sir.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't get quite the this thing, the DVD aspect of it.
You didn't get the DVD aspect.
Yeah, this select image type.
Okay. Okay. The image types, like I said, there are 4 types of images that you can use when you are when you're trying to download an image. So think of an image as a sort of like a DIX file that you use to load OS. It's hard to explain really because like I said, there are 4 types here: the DVD, the VGA, the serial, and the nano. So what the DVD does, the DVD creates like an ISO bootable, burnable image. Let's say you want to install Windows 10 on your laptop from scratch. Like you want to get Windows 10 on your laptop from scratch. What you do in this case is that you have to go to Windows 10 download. You have to now download that software, download the software from Windows 10, or you want to use Windows Server now, you can download that software from Windows Server. When you download it, it's going to be downloaded as an ISO image, as a .iso image. So what that .iso image gives you is that you can make that ISO image bootable. So use a flash drive, plug it to your system, and then make that stuff bootable. When you want to make it bootable, you can now run it on your system. You can format your system, then load that new OS on that system. So that's what DVD gives you. DVD gives you an ISO image that is compatible with your system. So you are using AMD64, UEFI, you can host that ISO image on that flash drive and make it portable to load your OS on it. So like I said, it's hard to explain these things unless you do it for yourself. But just know that if you want to burn an operating system to a laptop or to a virtual machine, you need to get the ISO image, then burn that ISO image to a flash drive. But in our case, you don't need to burn it to a flash drive. You can just put it on install it on the VM that we want to create, and then it works as intended. So that is what the DVD gives us. For the VGA is somewhat like an ISO image, but it's just compatible with other boot types. So, but for now, like I don't want us to go too far into it, but for now, let's just focus on DVD because the other ones like serial doesn't give us a GUI interface. If we download a serial image, it gives us a command line interface. It doesn't give us a graphical user interface. So if you want to use an operating system that makes use of a graphical user interface, you will have to use a DVD image and not a serial image. Nano is very complicated. Just that if you want to install it, it's just meant to be installed on a very small disk. So instead of you install it on a flash drive or on a big system, you can install it on a USB stick or on a SD card reader. But it's complicated. Let's just focus on what we're doing today, which is trying to download the ISO image to host it on a bootable VM in our environment, like a laptop or a server that I'm going to connect to now and download it on. I know it's complicated, but I hope that at least tries to clear up what you asked.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other question before I continue?
When something confused me, I think when you are doing this other one, this mirror location, the lease web, I saw 2 lease web. I saw one for East Coast also, and I saw another one for North Coast. Are the both of them the same?
Just think of that, the stuff that you saw, just think of what you saw as different locations that those servers are hosted in. So I can't really tell you if it's actually true that they're hosted in that location, but just think of it as, okay, whatever you saw that's in that mirror location is just where the application, where this OS is hosted in. So OPNsense has servers, but it might not be for them, but they have the application hosted in servers around the world. So just trying to say that, okay, if you're in Nigeria, unfortunately for us, they don't have any server in Nigeria that is hosting their OS. But if you are in Nigeria and then you want to download the software, you can't be going all the way to Asia server to get that software. They'll try and tell you, okay, choose a location that's closer to home. So maybe they have a server in South Africa. You can click on South Africa and download that application or that OS from that server that is residing in South Africa because it's closer to us. So it's going to make the download faster. So that is all that mirror location is all about. It's just trying to say, okay, how can I make my download faster? How can I speed up my download? You can use the server in Asia if you want. If you have a fast internet to go, no problem. It's just authentic. Okay, choose a location that's closer to home so that the latency is less and the download is faster. I
Okay.
hope you understood.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing my screen again, and I'm going to be sharing the virtual interface. So this is I hope you see my screen. This is the virtual interface. So this is what I talked before. So you get to this point, you download it. Once you download it, it's going to look like this. This is my downloaded software. You download as OPNsense 23.1 OpenSSL DVD, blah, 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 blah. This is going to be how the download is going to finish like. So at this point in time, we're going to now have to extract this file because it's a zip file. So we have to extract it to see the contents that are within the zipped file. I don't know if you are following, but if you get to this point and you see the image as it's not having any icon. So you don't see this somewhat like a suitcase icon beside it. What you have to do is you have to download a zip application. Either you download 7-zip or you download WinRAR. So in my case, I downloaded WinRAR way before now, just so it can be fast. I downloaded WinRAR and then I use WinRAR to extract. I'm using, as you saw now, I'm using WinRAR to extract the files that are within or hosted inside of this zipped file you are seeing here. So, like I said, if you have 7-zip, if you have WinRAR, you will do it. But if you don't have any of those applications, this icon will be looking weird. Like it don't have any icon because it doesn't have any application that can make use of that icon, that make use of this file that you downloaded. So again, download either WinRAR or download 7-zip to be able to extract this file to extract the files that are within the folder. So again, if you have any question, you can ask now while it's almost done extracting. Because when it's done extracting, I'll be moving on to the next step. The next step will be to creating the VM. I'm going to be creating the VM. So like I said, if you're in the last class, if you're in the class yesterday, they showed you guys Hyper-V, showed you guys how to create VMs, what VMs are for, what are hypervisors. So I won't be doing that today because there's no part of the lesson for today. But I'm just going to be showing you guys a brief overview of network switches, because network switches is like an important part if you want to actually understand this. If you are running this thing in a virtualized environment like your laptop with 2 Ethernet cards, you need to make sure you understand the concept of virtual switches. So I'll be going into the hypervisor of my server now, and I will try my best to explain what a virtual switch is and try to make you understand what virtual switches are used for. So it's on my screen. Yes, we are seeing 3 types of virtual switches. We are seeing external switch, we are seeing internal switch, and we are seeing the private switch. So these are the 3 types of switches that are within our environment. So in this basic term, I'll start from the last one, the private switch. The private switch is just basically used for if you have a virtualized environment in your laptop, maybe you have a VM or you have more than one VM in your laptop. What the private switch does is to give the virtualized machines in your laptop or in your environment access to each other. So if you create 2 or 3 VMs within this virtualized environment and you assign a private switch to those 3 VMs will be able to talk to each other. But the host is the system that is hosting the Hyper-V. If that host, which is hosting those virtual machines, that host won't be able to talk to the virtual machines because it doesn't have the network card to be able to talk to the virtual machines. But only the private switch allows the only virtual machines within the host to talk to each other, but not to the host. What the internal switch does, which is the next type of switch, what the internal switch does, it now gives the host a network card to be able to talk to the virtual machines. So I know I gave the example of a sandbox environment. So that sandbox environment, you can think of it as this private switch. So if you are having a host and you want to run some virus on a virtualized environment, but you don't want it to gain access to your host, you can use a private switch. So only that VM will be on its own without any connection to the host. So it doesn't affect the host if that stuff is actually a virus. But if you're using an internal switch, that internal switch is going to create a separate switch that will give that internal host, that will give the host access to the VM. So there will not be connection between the host and the VM. Like I said, it's confusing because you were not in the previous class that I spoke about hypervisors and virtual machines and the rest. But just for this class, just understand that an internal switch gives connection between the internal virtual machines and the host itself, so that they can be able to communicate with each other. And in this class, we're going to be creating an internal switch. And the last switch is the external switch. So what this external switch does is that it gives the virtual machine access to the internet. So if you give the virtual machine an internal switch, it's only going to have access to communicate with the host, not with the internet. So if you give a virtual machine an internal switch, it won't be able to go to youtube.com or google.com or yahoo.com because it only has access to talk to the host. But if you give the VM an external switch, that external switch gives its ability to talk to the internet through the host. So it's going to use the Ethernet cable, Ethernet port that is attached to the host to be able to communicate to the internet. So in this class, I hope that's understood. But in this class, we're going to be talking about the internal switch. We're going to be using mostly the internal switch and the external switch. So it's confusing, like I know. So if you have any question, you can ask now, so I can try my best and explain it further. Any questions, or did I do a good job explaining it? And I did it. So if you have any question, just ask. I'll take note of it and answer it. Okay.
Hello.
So I guess no. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I still don't get it. The internal and external switch.
Do you have a laptop there with you?
No, I don't. It's down.
Yeah. It's in your phone. Okay, but you have a laptop.
Yes. Yes, I do.
Have a laptop. Okay. So just stay with me. Don't mute yet. Your laptop, right? Your laptop is physical. You can see your laptop, right? So
Yes.
what I'm having here, what the virtual environment I'm having here is just like a hypervisor that you can host on your Windows 10 system. Yeah, you're using a Windows 10 system, right?
Yes, I am.
So if you turn on your Windows 10 system, maybe when it's up, you can enable what is called Hyper-V. Hyper-V is like a hypervisor that is used to create virtual machines. So what that virtual machine is that, okay, if you want to have a virtualized environment where you can have computers within your computer, because that's what virtualization is just to have computers within your computer. So if you have a laptop, you can host virtual machines. So you can, if you have, let's say you have a spec'd out laptop, you have a laptop that is 2 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte, 4 core, so maybe 16 core CPU. You can use your laptop to host other machines within your laptop that can even run in Windows 10. But you need to have a hypervisor application.
Is it something like running a Linux on your Windows?
Exactly. So I've used VirtualBox. Huh? Have you used VirtualBox before?
Once I have. I've used the VirtualBox before. Yes.
Exactly. Beautiful. So a VirtualBox is like a hypervisor. So it's just basically the same thing I'm doing here. It's just that I'm using a different application. Instead of using VirtualBox, I'm using Hyper-V that comes baked with Windows. So it just means to just create a virtual machine. Okay. So even in this Hyper-V, I can create a Linux virtual machine and put it up. So basically this Hyper-V, you can see right now, is just like a hypervisor environment that can be used to create a virtual machine. So I'm just trying to explain the networking parts of the virtual machine, like of the hypervisor, that is in this case Hyper-V. I'm just trying to explain that the internal switch, you said that you have worked with VirtualBox before, right? So the internal switch, think of it as giving it access to the virtual machine now, giving them Linux virtual machine or the Ubuntu virtual machine access to only talk to your system. So take, for example, the Ubuntu that you said that you have or you have worked with. Let's say you hosted a application on that Ubuntu server and it has the IP address of so and so. That machine, if you give it an internal switch in this case, that machine will only be able to talk to your laptop, because now your laptop is serving as the host. The laptop is now the host that is serving or is using it to virtualize machines. So your laptop is the host, while the virtual machines is the virtualized environments that you are running that virtual machine on. So the internal switch gives it the connection between the host and the virtualized environments. So any VM that you have this internal switch attached to will be able to talk to the host and the host alone. It will have access to talk to the internet. I hope that's understood. It can't talk to yahoo.com, google.com, gmail.com. It can only talk to it can only ping that host. It can only talk to your server. It can only talk to your laptop. It cannot talk to any other thing within the internet.
Okay.
Yeah. While the external switch now, what the external switch does is that makes that virtual machine make use of the internet card of the host itself. Because like I said before, if you have a laptop that has a network port is like a adapter that gives you access to the internet. So what that virtual machine does, if you create an external switch, is that it creates a connection between the virtual machine and the NIC or the network card that has access to the internet. It then gives that virtual machine access to browse the internet and also to talk to you. So it's using the host, that's your laptop now, as a gateway to talk to the internet. For the internal switch, exactly. For the internal switch, it's stopping at the host. The connection does not pass through the host; it stops at the
It
host.
doesn't go
And
outside, it's
external switch,
just within.
beautiful, exactly. While the external switch gives it that access, like a gateway, to go through me and access the internet. So I hope it's understood. And I hope everybody understood, including you, sir.
Yeah, please, I have a
Yes, thank
question.
you.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have Kali Linux on my system, so I'm trying to open it, but it's saying, the VM, I'm trying to open the VM, it's saying it's not compatible with device guard. I don't know what I can do it's not opening, it's saying it's not compatible with device guard, and I should try to remove, disable the guard, and I tried it, but still giving me the same error message.
You said you are trying to run Kali Linux VM on your laptop.
Yes, I'm trying to open the VM, yes.
Is it what hypervisor are you using? Are you using VirtualBox? Are you using Hyper-V?
I'm using Hyper-V. I'm using Workstation Pro, yeah, something like that.
Okay, VMware Workstation Pro.
Yes.
Okay, which is another type of hypervisor, and it's giving you an error when you're trying to launch the Kali Linux.
Yes, it's giving me an error. I don't know if you can help me with that.
That is not the scope of this class, but I can, if you want, I can give you maybe my email address. You can reach me at, and I can maybe try and help you with it. But that's not the scope of this class. This class is just mainly talking about how to install OPNsense. Yes, OPNsense is a type of Ubuntu software, but I'm just going to be talking strictly on the OPNsense part. If it helps you with the Kali Linux, that is good. But I'm just going to be talking strictly on the OPNsense. Sorry about that.
All right.
Okay. So any other question before I go ahead? Okay, so like I said before, I'm going to be making use of internal switch and external switch, which is why I said we are going to be needing two switches, two network cards. As I said, you have to have two Ethernet cards. So you have to attach one of those cards as the internal, you have to attach the other one as the external. So the external will act as a WAN port where you plug in your ISP, while the second will act as a LAN port where you plug in your LAN area network. So I'm going to be creating two switches in this case. The first one is the internal switch. So I'm going to be naming the internal switch. I'll just give it a name called training internal switch, internal virtual switch. It's going to be having the internal network on it, and I'll be pressing apply. So it's that's applied that internal switch. While for the external switch, I'm meant to create an external switch, but I've already created an external switch already. And we're going to make use of this external virtual switch. I already named it external virtual switch. So we're going to make use of this external virtual switch. If you want to create this, you have just click on new virtual switch, click on external, click on create virtual switch, and then you have now choose. Right now I have 4 virtual switches in my environment, which is obviously double what I said is needed, but I have 4 here. So if you, in your laptop, if you went to this drop down, you should be only be seeing at least 1. Or if you have a Wi-Fi and a network card, you'll be seeing 2. So if you see only 1, you just have to just click on that one. That one will be the one that will not give it access to the internet. So you click on that internet switch. In this case, I clicked on this one and I clicked on apply and okay. But I won't be creating it because I already created a external switch already for this case. So I'm going to be moving it. So I'll only be making use of this external virtual switch. So I'll be going straight now into the installation of the OPNsense. So the first thing you have to do is to click on new, click on virtual machine, then you click on next. Then we'll give the virtual machine a name. We can name it OPNsense training, OPNsense training. So after that, you just have to just choose where you want to store the VM. You can leave it as default, or if you have a sort of, maybe you want to make your workplace much more organized, you can keep all your VMs in a special folder that you created by yourself. I've done that already, so I'll just assign it to the VM I created, IDs folder I created already, and click on next. So here you now have to now choose the generation. I won't go into what the generations are, but in this case, let's just choose generation 1, and I'll click on next. And then now we have to now assign it a RAM. So I said the minimum gig of RAM you need is 2 gig, but since we are flexing here, we can give it 4 gigs of RAM. So 4096, just in this case, and then we'll click on next. So this is 4 gig is in MB is 1496. So how you can convert gig to MB, or gig to MB is if they say, okay, give me 2 gig, and you are seeing it as MB, all you have to do is just multiply that gig by 1024. So if they say, okay, give it 2 gig, you say 2 times 124, just now give it 2049. So if you 2048, and then if you want to say, okay, give me 4 gig, you just multiply 4 times 1024, and you get 4996. This is how I'm getting the 4 gig in megabytes. So when you're done, you click on next. Then for this networking part, here I can assign switches to it, but I won't do that now. Let's just hold on. Once I create the virtual switch, I'll show you how to assign the network cards. Now click on next again. So now I said that the minimum hard drive you can give it is at least 30 gig. But in this case, since, like I said, we are flexing gig, we can give it 50 gig of hard drive space, and click on next. So this part is now where we will now attach that ISO file we downloaded. Like I said, in a virtual machine sort of scenario, you can attach a ISO file to it without burning that ISO file. If you're doing it on your system, like you want to format your system and put a new Windows on it, you have to make that flash drive stable first. But in this case, we don't have to do it because of Hyper-V does that already for us. So all we have to do is just come to the image file and select where the image file is. So in my case, it was downloaded already, and I already extracted that file. So this was the file that I extracted. So all I have to do is just double click on it, and it shows me this DVD image. This is the .iso file. I'll click on it, and I'll click on open. So it's going to show here as an attached ISO file that we have. Then I'll click on next to save. Then I'll click on finish, which is now going to create the virtual machine that we have worked with. So this is the virtual machine that we created, OPNsense training. Like I said before, I'm going to attach the network card after I do it. So how to do is how to attach 2 network cards to a virtual machine is you have to click on it and click on settings. Once you click on settings, you're going to see just one network adapter attached to it. If you want to attach a second network adapter, like I said, the minimum you need is 2 network adapters. Once you attach a second adapter, you click on add hardware, click on network adapters, and click on add. So you can see that you created a second network adapter within your environment. So the first one, you will have to attach one of those network adapters to it. Like I said earlier in this video, we created 2. We created one for the LAN environment and the other one for the LAN environment. So you can choose for this first network adapter. I'm going to attach the LAN switch that we created for, and the LAN switch we created for was the training internal virtual switch. Because like I said, the internal switch is like a LAN area network, like the intranet. I'm going to attaching this virtual switch to this first network card that network adapter that we created for the virtual machine, and then click on apply to apply that switch to that network adapter. Then for the second network adapter, we're going to attach the WAN switch. Like I said, I've already created this WAN switch before. I'm going to be assigning that WAN switch to this virtual machine again. So it's going to act as a way for the OPNsense or for the virtual machine to have access to the internet. So I'll be clicking on the external virtual switch, and I'll be clicking on apply. So I click on apply, I click on OK, and we are good to go. Now we can start up the virtual machine, so we can start the installation of the OPNsense. So I click on start and I open it up. So we are going to go through a rigorous installation process where it's going to start installing the OPNsense from scratch. So this might take some time. So while it's installing, if you have any questions you want me to go back to, I can do that now while it is installing. So if you have any questions, anybody have any question while it's installing, you can ask your questions now. Any questions? Paul, can you still hear me?
Okay. So,
Yes, I can.
Okay. So you have a question, you can go ahead, ask a question.
I don't know. I think we've gone a little too far. The external and internal visual display, I didn't get it very well because I was a little bit distracted. But I don't know if you can go back to it, or if when I get the session, I can go through it.
Okay, yeah, you can, but while it's installing, I'll just push it over to one side so I will know when it's done. So while it's installing, I can just briefly go over the virtual switch part again. So
Okay.
this is the internal switch. Like I said, the internal switch. Do you have a laptop there with you? Do you use a laptop?
Yeah, I'm using my laptop.
Okay, do you use a laptop? Do you use the Wi-Fi of your laptop?
I use Wi-Fi.
Do you also use LAN cable? Do you know what a LAN cable is?
No, I don't use a LAN cable.
But does your laptop have a LAN port?
Yeah, it has.
Okay, you know what a LAN port is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. So I was trying to explain that. Have you worked with a hypervisor before? Maybe like VirtualBox or VM Workstation, any virtual hypervisor before?
No.
You haven't?
No, yeah.
Okay. Just think of these hypervisors as a way of creating a virtualized environment. So that virtualized environment is an environment that used to create VMs. And that VMs, you can use that VMs to host Windows 10 OS, to host Ubuntu, to host any sort of OS that you want to host on it. So when you're creating a switch, when you create an internal switch, what the internal switch allows is that it allows that virtual machine that you created in your virtual environment to have access to your host machine, which is your laptop in this case. So if you have your laptop, right, that laptop is your host, and that host is one that is hosting those virtual machines. So if you only want your virtual machines to only talk to the host, that's in this case your laptop, you assign an internal switch to it. So once you assign an internal switch to that virtual machine, it can only talk to your host. It can't talk to the internet. So you can't browse on Google, you can't browse on Yahoo, it can't go to the internet at all. It can only talk to your host and back. That's the only direction it can go to, your host and back. But if you give it an external switch, that external switch will allow that VM that's within your host, that's your laptop, to be able to talk to the internet. I don't know if that is understood. That external switch is different from the internal switch. Yes, with the external switch, you can talk to the host, but you can also talk to the internet. But with the internal switch, you can only talk to the host, which is your laptop in this case.
Okay.
Briefly, I don't know if that is understood.
Yeah.
So you understand it now?
Yeah, I get it. I get the point.
Okay. So that is basically what internal and external switch does.
Okay.
So here you can see that it's already done. So this is the page. Once it's done installing, you should be seeing a LAN, a WAN, and you should also be seeing some SSH issues, but it's not important. Basically, you should be seeing a page that shows you login. Once you get to this login page, what you have to do is you have to type installer. So if you just go ahead and log in normally, is anytime you reboot your virtual machine, it's going to start from scratch, like it's going to reboot from scratch. But if you type installer, what the installer login does is that it installs the OS. It makes like bonds the OS to the disks, so that the OS is on the disks that we created and not rebooting and starting from scratch anytime we reboot our virtual machine. So if first step, you type installer, which is a user that allows you to install the OS on the hard drive. You click on install, you click on the password. The default password for any OPNsense installation is OPNsense. You just have to type OPNsense. You can't see what I'm typing because of it's like a failsafe. It doesn't allow you to see what I'm typing, but I typed OPNsense when the password tab came up. So now it took us to the next page. I don't know if you're actually following what I'm doing and I'm going too fast, just stop me. But if you're just listening and looking at what I'm doing, then I'll continue. So the next stage takes me to this configure the key mapping. It's not important to just click next. Then it now asks us what type of installation should we want to use, UFS or ZFS or other types. We'll choose the first one. So then this case, just be pressing enter. It's just like a next, just the next thing, anything you see. I'll try my best to explain this, but just be pressing next. So in this case, they're asking us, where do you want us to install the OS? So there are two types. There's the virtual CD-ROM, which is 1 gig, and there's the DAO. If you remember, I gave the virtual disk a size of 50 gigabytes. So you have to make sure you see that here. So when you see 50 gigabytes, that is the virtual machine. That's the hard disk you're meant to burn the OS on. So in my case, I created a virtual machine, a virtual disk when I was creating the virtual machine, and I gave the virtual disk 50 gig of RAM. So that's where I'm going to install the OS on. So I'm going to click on OK when I scroll down with my mouse, with my keyboard, and click OK on the DFA2. Then they'll ask you if you want to do swap partition. Say yes. Rather than say yes, then they ask you, because what it does is it's going to format that virtual hard disk. I just created the virtual hard disk, so because there's nothing on that virtual hard disk. So I can say yes, go ahead and destroy whatever is on that hard drive. So it will start the installation process in this point. So once it's installing, like I said, it might take some time to install, but if you have any questions, you can ask now while the OPNsense is installing. Maybe if I went too fast or something that you didn't really see, you can ask. I'll go back and repeat what I said. So any question?
Yeah, the point, this, after you inputted the password, from that point, can you come again?
Okay. So from that point, when I put the installer, once I type installer, and I type the password, and it showed up a blue page. That blue page is like, if you have ever installed Windows 10 before on your laptop, it's just like a settings page. You're just pressing next, whatever you see. So what I said there is not, like I said before, it's not important. It's just like asking you what keyboard layer do you want to use. You just click the first one you see, the default one. And then the next one was asking what sort of partition do you want to use, what sort of putment do you want to use, UFS or ZFS. Those are important. Even me, I don't even know what UFS or ZFS is. You just click on next because of that is the partition that everybody uses. In this case, they use UFS. So you click on the first one, which is UFS. Then the next page now took me to select the hard drive. Like I said before, that hard drive selection part, you have to choose the hard drive you created when you created the virtual machine. So in my case, I created a hard drive size worth of 50 gig. So once I see that 50 gig, I go down and I select that 50 gig to be the hard drive where you store the OS on. So that is what the next page was. Just install the OS on that 50 gig hard drive. Then the next stage now asks me, do you want to destroy? Am I sure you want to destroy the hard drive? Want to the hard drive to use or to install the OS on it? Sorry, I said yes, and I went forward to install it on it, and it took me to the page. So this page is where it is now. So this is the installation process. So it might take some time, like I said. So while it's taking some time, if there's no question, I'll go back to my slides and then show you some few things before, and I'll come back here to check if it's done. Okay, so I'll be sharing my PowerPoint slide again, or my PDF slide. So if you have any questions, you can ask it now while I go back to share my PDF slide. Okay, yeah, see are you seeing my slide, or is it coming up?
Yeah, it's up.
Okay. So, like I said, I've done most of these steps that I did here. I downloaded the OPNsense ISO image by going to the website and downloading it. Then configure the network switches on Hyper-V. Like I told you, that is like the most confusing part. But if you get a hang of understanding what an internal and external switch is, you'll be very comfortable setting up this OPNsense firewall. The next one is I created and spun up a VM. So that's what I did with the Hyper-V. The Hyper-V is a sort of a hypervisor that you use to host VMs on. So when I created and I spun up the Hyper-V, I did it on the Hyper-V environment. That Hyper-V environment was also where I configured the network switch. So I did everything on that hypervisor environment. The next one I did was I mounted the ISO image. So the ISO image is what I downloaded here on the OPNsense website. So you saw what I did when I was configuring the hard disk. I had to click on Mount ISO. I browsed on where I saved the downloaded ISO image to, opened it and clicked on Open. Then and I began the installation process. That is the blue screen you were seeing that was like installing the application. So the next step I'll be doing after that is I'm going to be unmounting the installation file. Like I said before, if I had not typed installer, when I was logging in, if I had not typed installer and I typed root and the password, because that is the password, that's the default username and password. It will take me to the firewall and I can start my configuration. But I want to make it in the case that if I shut down my VM and I start up again, it doesn't start from scratch. Like even if what if I've done some configuration, what if I've done some changes? If I shut down that firewall, that VM, and turn it back on, it's going to start afresh from scratch. So I had to go through the installation process of installing the ISO image, installing that OPNsense OS on the hard drive. So after the installation process is done, I can unmount that ISO image. I can mount that very useful image of the OPNsense firewall, and then it's just going to boot from the hard drive, which the ISO image has been bound to. I hope that's understood. So I'll show you how I'll mount it. But in the next step, I'm going to be unmounting the installation file. In the next step, I'm going to be configuring the network interface. This is a simple step I'll be doing in my next stage. And then finally, we're going to be seeing the very famous OPNsense web console. So the OPNsense web console is where we'll be doing the actual configuration of the firewall. Because yes, back in those days, if you have done CNA, you have done Cisco, you would think that networking is all about typing configuration codes on your ISO, on your CLI, your terminal page, typing config T, typing switch port, like typing Cisco codes on like a terminal screen. Yes, if you're a seasoned CCNA administrator, yes, you can do that. You can enjoy it. But right now, security experts, network engineers, they work with the Kafka user interface because of they know that yes, networking is network security is stressful, so they don't want to put a lot of load on the user or on the cybersecurity analyst head. They try to make the firewall have a sort of graphical user interface. It's going to allow the admin guy have a better understanding of what the firewall is doing, have a better understanding of what they are configuring, and makes it easier for the cybersecurity analyst to come up with a lot of separate policies, separate rules, greater rules, see what is happening in their network. It just gives it a very intuitive interface that allows the cybersecurity analyst to be able to understand its environment. So which is the web console, which is the web GUI. So I'll be showing that to you just in a minute. So I'll be doing these three stuffs in the next step. So I'll be going back to my the virtualized environment. So while I do that, just tell me if you can see my screen when I go back to the virtualized environment. So are you guys seeing my virtualized environment? That's back to where I was installing the OPNsense. Is it visible? Can anyone hear me? Is it still visible? Paul, are you see my screen? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, it is visible. It is visible.
Okay. So I'm back at the OPNsense installation screen. So after it's done installing, if you're following along, it's going to show you two options. It's going to show you change your root password or complete and reboot. So you have two options. Either you want to change your root password or you want to complete and reboot. So I'm going to change the root password when we're in the GUI interface. So I'll do that now. So what I'll do now is I'm going to exit and reboot it. But before I do that, I'm going to click on exit and reboot, turn off the VM, remove the installation file like I said before, and then start up the VM again. What I'm doing now, I'm going to be clicking on exit and reboot. While I do that, I'm going to turn off the virtual machine. I'm turning it off. Once I turn it off, I'm going to have to go to settings, like the settings of the virtual machine, go to where I installed or I dropped the ISO image. So I dropped the ISO image on the ID DVD drive. I'm going to click on none. So click on none automatically removes the ISO image from the DVD drive. I click on apply and I click on OK. So once I've done that, I can now go ahead and start up the virtual machine. So now it's now putting it from the hard drive itself and not from the ISO image, which I just removed. So I'm going to open it up and I'm going to wait for it to continue to install. So in this case, once it's initializing the installation, it's going to take us straight to that page where we can now see the interface.
Hello.
Okay.
So I didn't get the part you just did now.
Okay, so what
Before
I
you
just did
click
now.
on exit and reboot.
Okay. Before I click on exit and reboot, or after I click on exit and reboot.
Yeah. After you click.
Okay. And I said, well, once I clicked on exit and reboot, what I did immediately was I turned off the virtual machine. That's the OPNsense virtual machine. Once I turned it off so that I can be able to mount that ISO image. To mount that, I attached an ISO image when I was initially installing the OPNsense so that I can
Yes.
burn that ISO image to the hard drive. So once I was done, I now had to now go back to remove that ISO image from it. So what I did was I went to settings and I went to where I attached the ISO image, which is as a DVD drive. So I clicked on this DVD drive, and before it was clicked on image file where I now attach that ISO image. But I wanted to remove it. So instead of me to just click on remove, I just clicked on none. So none just is like removing the ISO image from the VM. So I clicked on none and I clicked on OK. So that's how I removed that ISO image from the VM. Is it understood?
Okay.
All right.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So this is the page. If you have gotten this page, if you are following along and got to this page, then we're on the right track. We have gotten our interfaces and our IP addresses. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be configuring. I created a virtual switch. Creating an internal virtual switch is going to create a virtual switch on my system. So this, I created two. I already had an internal switch. I had a unit called internal virtual switch, but I created a new one called training internal virtual switch. So if I want to talk to my network, that is the VMs of my network, I have to configure this virtual switch to be able to talk to it. And to be able to configure it, I have to make them have the same IP address network LAN. So in this case, just follow along. It's kind of confusing, but just follow along. I'm going to give it an IP address so that it can be on the same subnet as the IP address I'm going to give my OPNsense firewall. And when I give the IP address the same IP subnet as what I'm giving my network card, I will be able to communicate with the virtual machine that is using that second network interface card. So just follow along. I'll explain later. So I'm going to give it an IP address of 172.20.20.20. So this is the IP address I'm giving it. I'm giving this network interface. I'm going to give it a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. So this is the interface I'm giving it to. So if you understand IP addresses and interfaces, you understand what I'm doing. But I'm not going to go deep into it. But just know that I give an IP address of 172.20.20.20 and a subnet mask of 255.255.0. So I've configured this thing on the internal virtual switch that is on the host itself. I'm going to click on OK. I'm going to click on OK. Now, what I've done is I've configured the network switch on the host. Now, I have to configure the network switch on the VM itself. In this case, you can see there are two network switches. There's the LAN and there's the WAN. So the LAN was where I created the internal switch to. So now I want the host to be able to talk to this OPNsense. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to change this IP address, this LAN IP address from 192.168, which is not in the same range as what I gave my internal switch on my host. I'm going to change to the range of the internal switch of my host so that the host and the information can be able to talk to each other. So what I'll be doing is I'll be logging in. The password for logging into the OPNsense is root. You type root, and then the password is OPNsense, the same default password as when I was installing it previously. So now it gives me where I can run some configurations. So in this point now, I'll now have to assign an IP address to the interface. So there are options here. Number one is assign interface, which that's not what I want to do. I want to set an IP address on the interface. I'm going to click on to assign an IP address on interface. And they're asking me what interface do I want to assign the IP address to. I want to assign it to my LAN interface because that's what I want to communicate with the host. So I click on one. Then they now ask me if it's a LAN interface, do I want to communicate via TCP? No, I want to make it static. So I'll type N and click on no. Now they ask me to now type in the LAN IP address. So because I want it to communicate with my host, I know I gave my host 172.20.20.20. So I have to give it an IP address that is within that subnet range so that they will both be able to talk to each other. So in this case, I'm going to give it 172.20.20.30. So this is in the same range because of the range you can talk is within 0 to 256. So I can give this thing .40.60 and it's still going to talk to the OPNsense with the LAN network, which is on .20. So I'm going to give it an IP address of 172.20.20.30. Click on OK. Now it asks for the subnet mask. If you remember on my host, I gave it 255.255.0. So in this case, I'm going to give it that same CDR notation or the subnet notation so that I can be able to talk to that guy. So I'm going to give it 24, which is the 255.255.0, which is the subnet mask that I gave the network card on my host. I'll click on OK. So then they're asking if is it a one interface? It's not a one interface, it's a LAN interface. So I'm going to click on Enter to continue. And they ask you, do I want to configure the LAN interface for one traffic tracking? I don't want it. I'll click on No. They're asking me now, do I want to configure it for DHCP v6? I don't need v6 at this point. I'll click on No. And they're asking me now, I should enter an IP address for IPv6. Right now, nobody really uses IPv6, so I'm going to just click on No to enter. We all use IPv4. And they're asking me, do I want to configure or enable DHCP server on a LAN? If I was using it for a popular or a very large environment, I'm going to say yes, so that it can assign the firewall will now have that job of assigning IP addresses to all the devices that connect to it. But this is a training environment, so I'll just click on no because I won't actually have devices connected to the firewall. But if it's needed for your home network, you click on yes, so that those devices, if they connect to the firewall, they're going to automatically be getting an IP address. This is what that guy asked. So in this case, if you click on yes and your brother connects to the firewall, it will get an IP address from the firewall. Then from the firewall itself, you can now check to see what is the actual IP address of your brother's phone or your brother's laptop that's going to connect to it. So like I said before, I'll be clicking no because I don't want to actually configure LAN on that DHCP on that LAN interface. Click on no. The next one, do you want to change the web gateway? So in this case, they're asking us, do I want to have the accessibility of reaching the GUI from HTTP or HTTPS? Yes, you want to reach it using HTTP and HTTPS. And they say you don't restore the web access details. You click on yes. So anytime you see anything about HTTPS or GUI, just type yes. They'll just tell you that okay, they're going to make the application accessible via HTTP. So you can reach it using the IP address of that you just gave the LAN interface. So now as you can also see, the LAN interface changed from 192.168 so something to what we just changed it to now, which was 172.20.20.30. This IP address just give it now, it should allow this host be able to talk to the virtual machine. And there's one way we can find out. Let's try and ping that interface. So from this, our host now, we'll try and ping the 172.16.16, sorry, 1.20.20.30. If it's pingable, then which means we can reach the virtual machine. So as you can see, we can reach the 172.20.20.30. The ping is going through successfully. So now that I know that I can reach that IP address, it means that I can now access the web console of the OPNsense. What I do is I go back to I open a browser, any browser. It doesn't matter what browser I use. You have to just open any browser, whether it's been Mozilla, Google, or Edge. Just open a browser and you type the IP address of the LAN interface of the firewall. Type 172.20.20.30 and you press enter, and it gives you this is the OPNsense interface. If you have gotten this page, if you are following along, then you have successfully installed the firewall on your virtualized environment. Now, going forward, we have to now type username and password. Like I said, the default username is root, and the default password is OPNsense. You type that, and then it gives you access to this web GUI interface. So this is the main aim of this class. This is where we just want to just get to in this point in time. So if you have got to this point in time, congratulations, you have successfully installed your first OPNsense or your first firewall in your virtualized environment. So I'll just be going on the basic setup of it. I won't be going too in-depth into it. I'll just go to the basic setup of it. So I'll be showing you what each interface does. I won't be going too into the setup. I'll just be briefing you on how to configure the firewall for the basic setup. Then for other modules, like if I'm going forward in other modules, as if I'm going to module 10 or module 20, I'm going to be going in depth on actually what all these things are. But for this first module, I'll just stop at this stage where I've installed the application and just done basic setup of the OPNsense firewall. So I'll click on next because I want to just set up, it does give basic setup of the OPNsense. So here we can choose what we want to name the firewall. We can choose to name it training firewall. Then we can now give it a domain. You can leave it as local domain, give it a language, private DNS. If you wanted to act as a DNS, and you want to assign, maybe you have a DNS server in your environment, you can give it here. But in this case, let's leave it as blank because it's going to use the default 4.2.2.2 that is given to us by Google, or 8.8.8.8 that's given to us by Google. So here we now can choose to unbound the DNS. So you want to make the firewall act as a DNS resolver. You can choose to say yes, act as a DNS resolver here. You click on next. Next page gives us set up NTP. So NTP is like a network time protocol. So it allows you to synchronize your time between all your devices. So if all your devices are connected to the firewall, it's going to use the same time that the firewall uses to attach to those devices. In this case, I'm going to use the time zone of UTC, UTC, that is what we're going to use for this time. So we'll set it at default and just move forward. It's just basic setting up of the network time protocol of the firewall. So in this case, it's asking for the one IP address interface configuration. So I'm going to leave it default for now because there are certain ways we can configure the one interface. We can use static configuration, which is what we didn't use here. We can use static. But we're not going to use static because we don't have a dedicated IP address coming from the ISP. So we're going to leave it at, we only do static as static. DHCP configuration is what we actually use. We're going to leave it at DHCP to get an IP address. PPOE, which is point to point over Ethernet, we're going to give it as, because we don't have, that's actually an ancient type of connection, so we're going to leave it blank. Or PPTP, so that is point to point tunneling protocol. This one is ancient, so we're going to leave it blank too. So we're going to, all we're using is just the static configuration that we use for the interface, and then we click on next. So the next now is now asking us for the LAN interface. We configured this already using the CLI. So here we'll leave it blank because we already configured this interface already with the IP address that we gave it in the CLI. Click on next. And then now, this is now where we can now set the root password. So like I said, the default password is OPNsense. So if you don't like the OPNsense, if you don't like it, it is advisable to always change the default password of any application you're using. So if you're using, like maybe you want to install a new software and you give a default password, you are advised to always change it because of obviously you don't want to be using the default password that comes with it because now everybody knows it because it's known to everybody. It's a default password. So it's always advisable to change your password. So at this point, I'll be changing my password to a very strong password, which I want to be using to log into the OPNsense anytime I want to. So once I'm done and it matches with it, I can click on next. Once it's done, I reload the OPNsense. Once the OPNsense is reloaded, we have done the basic setup of the firewall. Then we can now start doing a lot of interesting things. We can view the dashboard, we can license it, change the password, the reporting page, we can check the health, insight, net flow. Like a lot of things we can use. This is like a standard firewall. You can configure access to it, maybe who wants to have access to it, do normal configuration. There are a lot of, this is where all the modules come in place. But in this very first module, I don't just show you guys how to install it, how to get the firewall up and running, and how to do the basic setup of the firewall. So if you have any question, I can take it now because we are at the end of the our training session. So any question you can ask now.
Yeah, so if you have any question, you can always ask now. Our technical expert is still here with us. Take questions. Okay, I guess we've learned a lot today. We've learned a lot about. Please don't leave yet. We still have important information we want to share with you. I guess we learned a lot about OPNsense, about networking and firewalls. So basically, we actually have a 3-month physical OPNsense training course, which actually goes in depth into what you've actually learned today. And it's a fully practical course, which is actually going to take you on the concept of networking and firewall. It's a course that's fully practical. You're going to actually have fun doing it. Nobody's going to be left behind. Everybody taking the course is going to be carried along at every point in time. Basically, the course is very extensive. I'm sure that you all can testify to the expertise of our expert that just took this particular course. Yeah, so basically, people that are interested in getting the certification, the free certification, a link is going to be put in the chat section. Please kindly help us to fill that link. So we'll use that to process your free certification. I'll send that to you via email. Yeah, so thank you for that. The link is going to be in the chat box very soon. Now, the fully practical course so the fully practical course is a 3 month course. It's a 3 month course, and it's going to be so it's a 3 month course, and normally we intended of putting the course at 250,000 naira, because normally if you take this type of extensive course outside, you are not going to get it less than 500. So we intended of putting the course at 250,000 naira, but because of the present economic condition, especially because I'm sure that everybody is from Nigeria. So we decided that how can we actually make this course more affordable for people? So we decided to slash the price down to 150,000 naira. Now the cost price is 150,000, and this is just amazing. The amount of value you're going to get is way more than the price you're paying. For instance, if you finish this course and you get into the network engineering field, you can be earning as an entry level network engineer, you can be earning up to 300,000 and above. You are working in Nigeria, and if you're working remotely above, if you're working remotely with an international firm, you can be earning up to $60,000. Yes, so it's a very, very, very good opportunity that you can actually take and make use of now. Now, for the first five people to actually register, we have a special discount. Now, unfortunately, out of the five, one person has already saved the spot, so we just have 4 spots left. So if you're interested in actually paying for the training now, you get a 30,000 naira discount. You get a 30,000 naira discount if you're interested. So you can pay for it at 120,000 naira. Now, if you look at it, a course you are taking for 3 months, paying just 120,000 naira, that means you're just spending about 2,000 naira per day on the course. You're just spending about 2,000 naira per day on the course. So it's something that you can actually check. We're going to be putting the link for the course. We are going to be putting our numbers here so you can reach us. We're going to be putting our email here so you can reach us. And also because we care about you and we want you to actually be able to afford the course. If you can't afford to pay for the course at once, but you're still interested in taking the course, we have an instrumental plan. So you can reach us via WhatsApp or email. So and the instrumental plan is very affordable and friendly. So you can reach out to us via WhatsApp or email and, get access to the instrumental plan. It's a physical course that is going to be taking place in Lagos. So it's just majorly for people that are residing or can actually commute to Lagos. So it's going to be taking place in our office at Lekki in Lagos. So if you're interested, you can always reach out. I'm sure that we are all interested. We've all learned a thing or two from today's session. It has been quite interesting. Are there any questions? Are there any questions concerning the training? Do we have any questions concerning the training? Do you have anything you want to maybe learn about concerning the training?
No questions.
Yes, okay.
No questions.
Oh, okay. So if you have any question, you can reach us on WhatsApp, can reach us via email. It's going to be very practical. And like you said, OPNsense is the basic thing you have to actually learn before venturing into network security. And also for people that take the training, they're going to be getting access to, paid internships with our organization. So some selected people that take the training are going to get paid internship. And also there's going to be a professional certificate attached to the training. And apart from that, the most important benefit you get is mentorship. You're going to be getting access to mentorship. Our expert instructors that will be taking you will be mentoring you for over 6 months. during the training and even after the training. So they will be mentoring you. If you are thinking of taking the Cisco certification, you can always take this training to actually have fundamental knowledge. And when it's time for you to take that, our instructors can actually guide you, give you resources that would enable you to actually take that certification to further, to further help you in your career as a network engineer. So transitioning to tech has really helped people to change their lives. It has helped people like Grace to change her life. Grace was someone like a couple of years here 3 years ago. She just transitioned to tech, transitioned to tech 3 years ago, and now she's earning over $3,000 working remotely. So your case study too can be like that. So all you need to do is just reach out to us or click on the link in the chat description and get started with the training. So we look forward to having you in the physical training class. Thank you very much for attending this training session. Have a nice day.